9:45 having arrived, I'd like to call the Kane County Board meeting of May 7, 2019 to order. Will the clerk call the roll?
Allen. Present. Guerrero. Here. Davis.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Hernandez. Bocek.
Here.
Rickman.
Here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Reyes.
Here.
Kobe.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Lewis. Here. Martin.
Here.
Canina. Present. Sanchez.
Here.
Temple.
Here.
Silva. Here. Garrett. Present. Sturgis.
Yes.
Thomas. Weber.
Here.
Whiteman. Here. Lady. Here.
We have a quorum. I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off cell phones to avoid distractions over the next hour and a half. Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand and remain standing for the prayer? Ivan Carmona, the winner of the Juvenile Justice Council Outstanding Student Award, comes to the microphone to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please remain standing. Bill Lindner, Kane Day Shift Supervisor, will now come to the microphone to lead us in prayer. In April, we celebrated the Telecommunicator Week, recognizing Kane County employees. Bill has been employed with the county for 10 years and also volunteers as a firefighter for his community in his time off. So, Bill.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for today, and I thank you for each of these board members. I just pray you'd be with them as they have this meeting and they lead this county. Just give them direction, help them to understand the needs of the county, the people, and each and every organization. Give them the strength to continue to do their job and just bless them in all they do. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Would you please rise?
The gentleman who led us in prayer, what was his name and what did he win?
His name is Bill Lindner.
I'm sorry, the gentleman who led us in
In the Pledge of Allegiance, that was Ivan Carmona, and he is the winner of the Juvenile Justice Council Outstanding Student Award. We have a special presentation today.
That is wonderful. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the April 2nd and 9th, 2019 meeting. So moved by Mr. Cross, second by Mr. Weber. Any changes, adjustments? If not, all those in favor of passing those say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. And we're going to turn the program over to Julia Schick to talk about the Juvenile Justice Council Outstanding Student Award in 2019 Youth Service Professional Recognition. So, will you please come forward?
Sorry, Chairman, you're actually turning it over to me. My name is Sarah Seeberger. I'm an assistant state's attorney. I just want to start by introducing everyone again to the Juvenile Justice Council. The Juvenile Justice Council is chaired by State's Attorney McMahon and is a group of stakeholders, including the Chief Judge, who are tasked with performing juvenile delinquency issues here in Kane County. The council is comprised of representatives from multiple systems who understand the factors that can cause a student to be at a higher risk to struggle. I'd like to ask Ivan Carmona to come back up. Ivan is our winner of the Juvenile Justice Council Outstanding Student Award. The Juvenile Justice Council Outstanding Student Award is an opportunity for students to be recognized for their efforts and achievements in overcoming adversity. The Kane County Juvenile Justice Council would like to recognize Ivan, who was nominated by his teacher, Karen Tobin. Wrapping up his senior year at Dream Academy in Elgin, Ivan shared his story with us of moving to the United States as an only child without his parents. Growing up in Mexico at the age of 8, Ivan was working to help his family financially while also grieving the death of his mother. After his father was diagnosed with cancer, Ivan moved to the U.S. at the age of 14, enrolling in school and working 32 hours per week to help with living expenses. Despite having multiple adverse experiences in his childhood that impacted his mental well-being as well as his social and academic development, Ivan has demonstrated resilience and perseverance. Ivan is determined to honor the memory of his mom and dad by making a positive future for himself, considering plans to join the military or pursue an education at Elgin Community College as an auto mechanic with aspirations to open his own business someday. On behalf of the Juvenile Justice Council, Ivan is being given a plaque to commemorate his outstanding achievements. The Kane County Bar Association and an anonymous donor have provided a donation to the Kane Excellence in Education Partnership Fund in the amount of $1,000 for Ivan to put towards his future educational endeavors. Ivan was one of 4 nominees, and the JJC will be providing the other nominees with the certificate of nomination. Congratulations, Ivan. I'd next like to ask Marina Salinas to come forward as she's being recognized for the Juvenile Justice Council Youth Service Professional Award. Recognizing that working with youth with complex needs and behaviors can be a challenge, the Juvenile Justice Council Youth Service Professional Award is an opportunity to showcase the dedication and commitment of the professionals working with our community's most vulnerable youth. The Juvenile Justice Council would like to recognize Marina as the 2019 Youth Service Professional. Marina was nominated by Bernadette May, the Executive Director of Family Service Association of Greater Elgin, where Marina is employed. Marina is described as a successful professional with an ability to empathize while holding people accountable. Her strength in establishing trust and rapport allows her to connect with individuals from diverse backgrounds. The result is that issues are effectively addressed. An example of Marina's dedication can be seen in her work with a youth who moved to the Chicago area from Central America. Using the skills described above, Marina has been able to advocate on behalf of this individual to remain in the United States while providing services to address the trauma this youth endured in her country of origin, extending treatment beyond the traditional 90 days allotted. Now in the 8th month of treatment with Marina, this youth is reported to have improved functioning in her home, community, and school. On behalf of the Juvenile Justice Council, Marina is being given a plaque to commemorate her exemplary service. Marina was one of 4 nominees, and the JJC will again be providing the others with a certificate of nomination. Congratulations, Marina. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm going to ask Mark Armstrong to come forward. Mark Armstrong and Mark Kirchhoff have an interesting experience to share with us briefly. There's going to be a video. I'll let Mark describe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an old saying that one plants and another harvests, and I think that's something that we can pay attention to a lot in times where sometimes our society is described as being fractious, disagreeable. We sometimes wonder, can we ever overcome differences? Well, 75 years ago, my father and perhaps your parents or grandparents were doing something my dad sometimes referred to it as a 4-year cruise in the South Pacific, courtesy of his rich Uncle Sam. And he was engaged in an exercise then that was probably a lot more divisive than anything we're going through today. But this spring we saw the harvest that took place from the planting that took place so long ago. I accompanied as a chaperone the East High School Wind Ensemble on its tour of Japan. And Mark Van Kerkhoff was going to be here, but he wasn't able to make it. His son Caleb was there. My daughter Ellie was there as well. And we went to Shujitsu High School, which is in Okayama, that's near Osaka. This was an area that was involved in those activities of 75 years ago. An old castle right near the high school we're at was destroyed in the war. But it's being rebuilt as a modern city. And what I saw was something that I thought was absolutely amazing. I have a video of it, and it is the St. Charles East High School Band and the Shujitsu High School Band playing together one of the most popular music songs in Japan, something that everyone knows. You'll be able to see this from the audience reaction, and I think you'll be surprised as I was that this song would be one that is that popular. So with that, Blair, go ahead and click start. So the lesson we can learn from all of this is we may not achieve entirely peace and agreement amongst ourselves today, but if we work together, we can plant the seeds that our children can harvest tomorrow. Thank you.
so astutely putting the context of the experience that you shared with us. And I know that part of your message is, if they can do it, we can do it. So next on the agenda, I'd like to ask Barb Jeffers to come forward. You come up and stand here, and Anita Lewis. Barb Jeffers, as you know, is our Executive Director of Public Health, and Anita Lewis is the chairman of that committee. I'd like to ask Blair to get ready with a public radio, national public radio interview that Barb was recognized as expert nationally in her field, and this is going to be a short part of that interview. And for any of us to be on a national stage as Barb has, and to bring all of that back home to share with our 532,000 constituents, it is a wonderful thing. I want to recognize that. So Blair.
Good morning, Chip. I'm Odette Yusup in for Jen White. A recent survey showed Kane County residents are using more illicit drugs and reporting poorer mental health than 4 years ago. The survey was conducted by the Kane County Health Department, and the results came as quite a shock to its Executive Director, Barb Jeffers, who joins me now in the studio. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for having me. So let's talk about the use of opioids in Kane County and how that's been changing over time. How much of an impact were you able to see the opioid crisis having in these survey results?
Well, quite a bit. We began to notice the trend around 2010, and we began to see the incidents of deaths happening in our community, and we began to take a look at that. And when we do these surveys, we pull together our community to look at what are we going to focus on. And this became very apparent to us that there was a problem in our community. And so as a result of that, we began to take a closer look. And unfortunately, we have not been spared as the rest of the country in terms of the death rates from the opioid use. And so as a result of that, we put together various things that we're working on, especially we have the Kane County Opioid Task Force. Our jails are working on some what's called MAT, medical assisted treatment, and other things. So our community has pulled together to look at how do we address this issue so we can reverse the trend that we have currently.
How has business sort of changed, or what you're doing changed at the health department to respond to that crisis?
Well, change we introduced in 2014 the Narcan program, where we initially provided Narcan, which is a medication to reverse the overdose, to all of our first responders. And then as we recognized the numbers, as we were saving lives, we began to see more products of use. So therefore, we expanded into the community to partner with our schools, with our libraries, and others to provide that medication. Then we created our task force so that we pulled together all of our resources in our community, because there is not one entity that can address this problem alone.
Okay, thank you very much, Blair. Thank you, Barb and Anita. Next presentation today is regarding Skyline Council of Landmarks, Illinois, in Camden Township, relocating the historic 1852 Whitney Schoolhouse. And I'd like to turn the program over to Barbara Nicky.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me a few minutes. Yes, Skyline Council of Landmarks, Illinois, and Camden Township have joined together to relocate the 1852 Whitney Schoolhouse. The schoolhouse will be moved less than 1.5 miles down Burlington Road from its current location to Gray Willows Farm, located at Coron Road and Burlington Roads. Our ultimate goal is to repurpose it as an environmental education center. The event takes place Friday, May 17th, at 9:30 at Gray Willow Farms. Everybody is invited. We would love to see everybody there. The celebration at Gray Willows is from 11 to 2 with barbecue food and music. The 9:30 is when the school actually leaves the site and will be rolling down Burlington Road. So we just encourage people to be there at 9:30 or 10 o'clock to see the school roll into Great Willows Farm. I'd like to thank this commission for approving a riverboat grant to help with the move. I'd also like to thank Hampton Township Open Space Foundation, Site Boss, who donated the excavating, Neil and Keith Anderson, who are donating the concrete work, and then several others who have joined us to make this historic move. So thank you very much.
Ms. Wojcicki. Today, we have a speaker. I'd like to just mention what I mentioned at each meeting, that we have a speaker. Just as a matter of protocol, individuals who have registered to speak on an agenda item prior to 8:30 a.m. In the morning are allowed 5 minutes to address the board, and then on off-agenda items or non-agenda items, 3 minutes. And total public comment time for items listed on the agenda limited to 30 minutes. Naturally, speakers refrain from statements or remarks or conduct that otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the county board or which causes a disturbance. So this morning, on the subject of putting audio recording and playback technology in all Kane County civil courtrooms, is Sean Callaghan. And Sean, would you come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Sean Callaghan. I'm a resident of St. Charles, 15 North 9th Street, St. Charles. I was actually born, about 400 yards from here at the old Geneva Hospital, so I know Kane County. I love Kane County. I've lived in St. Charles and Batavia over the years. But the reason I'm here today, briefly, 3 minutes, is because I was involved in a lawsuit here, civil lawsuit in Kane County, and as a result of the inability to record verbatim the proceedings, I was forced to expend an enormous amount of my personal resources, which were meager to begin with, to pay court reporters to transcribe the proceedings, which runs roughly $200 per hearing, if you include the cost of the court reporter being present to transcribe and then to actually pay for the transcripts. But very specifically, in this matter that I was involved in, 15 OP 510, if anybody's interested in looking it up, there was a sort of climate of, how shall we say, a lack of integrity on the part of some of the judicial officers. It's an easy thing to say. It's a harder thing to document, but I did document it. I have it right here. In a proceeding that, the very first one that where I had a court reporter present, which was, and incidentally, I've made a digital copy of these documents for anybody who would like a copy. I'll just do a mass email. But at any rate, on September 16, 2015, I finally paid a court reporter to show up, and I don't have time to read a few snippets from the proceedings, but you will see if you look at these documents that because I was referring back to the prior proceeding, which was on the 24th of August 2015, there is a tremendous amount of confusion and even obfuscation regarding what happened in that unrecorded proceeding. And Unfortunately, what did happen in that meeting was there was a motion presented to Judge Cruz that detailed significant misconduct on the part of some officers of the court, a gentleman by the name of Jim Kintz, and there's actually, there was in the motion, the 824 motion, which I believe I have a copy of here in these documents, there is detailed what I think anyone here on the county board, anybody who cares about Kane County, and litigants who have difficulty standing up to either institutional opposition or opposition that's better off financially, that's particularly with emphasis on people who are caring for the interests of children in Kane County.
Mr. Coleman, what you're speaking of is very important. Will you bring your remarks to a conclusion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lawson. I actually am at my conclusion here. So I do have these documents. The point is, unlike DuPage County, where I'm told by several attorneys who practice in DuPage County, there is a much greater level of integrity over there in the civil proceedings because those proceedings are documented. So in today's day and age, when there's surveillance everywhere, it is, to me, unconscionable that Kane County has not installed the technology to record every proceeding and to make it available for anyone and everyone who has a concern, especially people who are voiceless because they lack funds, or people who are speaking on behalf of the voiceless, such as children who can't speak for themselves. So I would hope, and Mr. Lawson, if you could you direct me on how to proceed further? Perhaps there's a judiciary committee or something where I could bring a more formal motion. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the time this morning. Thank you.
Next on the agenda are zoning petitions.
Mr. Chairman, I signed up on this sheet. I'm sorry it didn't get up to you apparently, but I'd like to make a comment on a non-agenda item, if I may.
Okay, and what's the subject? And if you give your name and address.
I will. My name is Rick Lathrop. My wife and I live at 607 Evergreen Drive in Batavia, and we worship at the Congregational Church of Batavia. Via our church, through our church, I'm also active in the Fox River Valley Initiative. About 5 years ago, we started work to reduce the number of people in our jail and in our criminal justice system, primarily because they have mental illness. We know that there are better places to deal with folks who have mental illness, and I'm here to publicly thank State's Attorney McMahon, Sheriff Kane, and former Sheriff Kramer for their involvement and support in making this happen. Through their offices, we now have in Kane County, I'm sure you're aware of it, crisis intervention team training, a 40-hour course for law enforcement officers at all jurisdictions, how to recognize mental illness when they confront it and how to de-escalate it. That's an important step toward keeping people who are exhibiting mental illness out of the criminal justice system. With State's Attorney McMahon, we are now working with Deputy Governor Flores on another change in how Illinois deals with folks with mental illness that will make a huge difference. So I'm just here to thank those two people, as well as former Sheriff Kramer, for all their work and support in the last 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Laker. Is there anyone else, our our procedures are that anyone who signs up before 8:30 is then placed on the agenda, but certainly we are open to having people share their thoughts. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? If not, we'll go on to the zoning petitions. I'd like to ask Development Committee Chairman John Martin to rise, discuss, and make motions to approve the zoning petitions on today's agenda.
First matter before us, First matter before us is in Hampshire Township. It's property located at basically the intersection of Interstate 90 and US Route 20. It's the old Shireland property, if anybody is familiar with that former operation. The proposed amendment is seeking a PUD planning and development to repurpose that site and to utilize the existing 1,000-foot sign that's on the property. There was no regional planning commission jurisdiction. The zoning board approved it, and the development committee recommended approval. I move its passage and request a second. Barbara, thank you. Seconds. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of this resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Everyone can do this.
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Pickle?
Yes.
Henry? Sargis? Henry?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Kobe? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Rita? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Pepper?
Yes.
Silla? Yes. Barrett? Yes. Burgess?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Wayman? Yes. Wade? Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. The second matter is filed by James Muncie in Blackberry Township. His property located at 39 West 100 Main Street Road. They sought rezoning is from F-District Farming to E3 District Estate to create a new residential parcel. There were no objectors at the hearing. The Regional Planning Commission had no jurisdiction. The Zoning Board recommended approval of the Development Committee. I'm moving that and request a second. Mr. Frost seconds. Do we have any comments or questions? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Pickle?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Rita? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Pepper?
Yes.
Silla? Yes. Barrett? Yes. Burgess? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Wayman? Yes. Wade? Yes. Yes.
Thank you. That concludes our petitions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, next is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Mr. Martin?
I'd like to remove item 19-151, please.
Any others? Mr. Frost?
19-168.
Okay. Any others? Ms. Sterrett, would you rise, please?
Thank you. Yes, under executive unnumbered number 2.
Could you repeat that, please?
On my consent agenda, it says executive. Under that, it says unnumbered, and it's, there you go, 19-144, 19-145. You have one that's an unnumbered, and then the second one that's an unnumbered, which is appointments to legal affairs, claims risk management committee, and list of names. That's one.
Okay. Let's see, so are you saying 145?
No, because you don't, there's no number, it says unnumbered.
Okay, so underneath 145, so.
Correct.
Unnumbered.
Yeah. So there are two on here that are unnumbered. There are no numbers, so it's the second one that I'm looking at. It says appointments to legal affairs, claim for risk management committee, that particular one. Thank you so much.
So the second unnumbered under executive. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, any others? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of 151, 168, and the second unnumbered under executive. So moved by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. Leonard. Clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Wilczek?
Yes.
Abel?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Colby? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Chapel?
Yes.
Philip? Yes. Barrett? Yes. Burgess?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Whiteman? Yes. Kennedy? Yes.
Okay, passes. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and take, potentially approve number 19-151? So moved by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Franz. Mr. Martin.
They mentioned this at the executive committee, and it bears repetition. This is an easy thing to pass, but it was a marvelously difficult task, and the head of that department, Jody Womack, and her staff did a magnificent job of repeated meetings, staff involvement, redrafting, noting errors made in the state's own model ordinance, and I just think that special mention is worthwhile in the context of something this substantial. So that's all I had to say, but I do want that said again.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any further discussion? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Wilczek?
Yes.
Abel?
Yes.
Dias?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Chapel?
Yes.
Philip? Yes. Barrett? Yes. Burgess?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Whiteman? Yes. Kennedy? Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes, and again, thanks to everyone involved. Jody Womack is in the audience today. Thank you very much, Ms. Womack. Next, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and approve number 19-168, Mr. Cross, second by Ms. Allen. Mr. Cross.
Yeah, in the Forest Preserve meeting just an hour ago, we had our annual volunteer report where they go over the hours and all the benefits our volunteers do for us. Ms. Allen was inspired and talked to me during the break and suggested, and I agreed, that we should highlight our highway program. Today we have our annual renewals, so there's 17 items on today's agenda. I won't go through them all, excuse me, but every month we have several of these come through. Sometimes they're families, individuals, corporations, businesses, community groups, and they do a wonderful job. And it's maybe even not as fun as some of the Forest Preserve things, but it's of great value to us. And I would just like to highlight our Adopt the Highway program and all the applicants and people that participated in it. Give them a nod. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comment? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Wilczek?
Yes.
Abel?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Dias?
Yes.
Colby?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Chapel?
Yes.
Philip? Yes. Barrett? Yes. Burgess?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Whiteman? Yes. Kennedy? Yes.
Motion passes. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and approve the second unnumbered item under executive? So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Dr. Iqbal. Ms. Sterritt, I believe that you opposed this.
Thank you so much. I was wondering, I looked on the agenda for executive, and there was no I was wondering if I could have elaboration with regards to this committee, the purpose, and therefore.
These are appointments that were discussed at the executive committee meeting. As the minutes will reflect, of Dr. Iqbal, Ms. Allen, Ms. Lewis, and Ms. Wodnicki. It's in keeping with ordinance number 2193. And to give you the Part A is Legal Affairs and Claims Committee. The Legal Affairs and Claims Committee shall be a subcommittee of the County Board Executive Committee and shall consist of 4 members thereof appointed by the chairman of the county board with advice and consent of the county board, and the chairman who shall be the chairman of the county board. The chairman may vote on all matters considered by the committee. The committee shall have the powers and duties set out in this section, and such other duties as may be assigned or delegated to it from time to time. The committee shall meet at the call of the chair. So that's what our ordinance is. Follow-up questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you. And then
With regards to people on this committee, and then you look at the ones that you felt would be best to help out with legal affairs, with claims, and risk management that have experience in that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Dr. Silva.
Thank you. Is this a committee that would foresee the settlement of claims under a certain amount of money?
Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, because they're, okay. That has been what's been done in the past. That I believe the authority was, according to our procedures, it's under $50,000. I would anticipate, though, that all of the matters that are settlements, I believe that those should come before the board. So in the past, that was one of the procedures that was followed by that committee. We would certainly discuss those matters. We would do whatever we can without interfering, by the way, with work that's being done on worker compensation by county elected officials, including Mr. Surgis as chairman of the Human Services Committee. But it says that if there's any objection to approving any of the items, that it would come before the entire board, which has been the practice for maybe the last 2 years. I would anticipate having discussion there, and if we can do any improvement, again, without interfering with work that's being done in other areas, we would bring all of those to the county board as a whole.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas? Or estimate that it was maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago, best recollection.
And I'm just wondering if it was for some of this committees now.
So that we can give greater consideration. This action was recommended by at least a couple of our board members, and so I'm accommodating those requests. Any further questions? If not, clerk call the roll.
Helen? Guerrero? No. Davis?
Yes.
Buzz?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Boccia?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
Tice?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Chapel?
Yes.
Silva? Yes. Sterrett? No. Surgis?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Robert?
Yes.
Whitman? No. Wodnicki? Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda are off consent items. I have a motion and a second to approve number 19-173. So moved by Ms. Wodnicki, second by Ms. Allen. Any discussion, comment?
Yes. Kobe? Leonard? Yes. Lewis? Yes. Martin? Molina? Yes. Sanchez? Yes. Bevel? Yes. Philip? Yes. Sarah? Yes. Burgess? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Bird? Yes. Whitman? Yes. Liddy? Yes.
The motion passes. Next on the agenda, I'm going to call the second unnumbered emergency procurement of automobile for the State's Attorney's Office. I ask State's Attorney McMahon if he would want us to move forward on this.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion in a second. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Mr. O'Shea. Is there anyone who would like to outline what this is? With the indulgence of the board, I ask Mr. McMahon to give us the background.
Sure, we had a vehicle that was deemed unsafe by, I don't recall the name of the county department, but it was an older vehicle, really high mileage. It was deemed unsafe to operate. We don't, as you know, in my budget, there's no capital budget for me to replace a vehicle kind of mid-year. That vehicle was deemed unsafe, I think January or February this year. So I brought this request initially to the administrative committee in March. And I was here this morning to replace that vehicle. It's a vehicle used by our investigators, transport witnesses, conduct interviews, and daily operations of the office.
Okay, any further comment? Okay, I have no objection to the substance of the resolution. I would ask, what's the background on, it was presented 2 months ago, and I believe that a question was asked by the chairman of the administration committee. I was there on that morning. But there was nothing happened after that until this morning, from what I understand. What's the background of why it's an emergency procurement now?
It was on the March 13th agenda. My recollection of the administration committee, my recollection was taken off of that agenda without discussion. We've been without the vehicle since, as I said, again, I think it's January or February. I don't recall exactly, but predated the March 13th administration committee meeting. We're now in the middle of May. We've been without a vehicle for several months. We have witnesses and interviews to conduct, and we have to be able to go perform those responsibilities.
Okay, thank you. Any comment, Ms. Allen?
The admin committee oversees the purchase of vehicles, and we're getting more sophisticated as far as keeping track of title and insurance and repairs and so on, thanks to an aggressive program that our IT department under Mr. Ponsock is putting together. But basically, administration approves vehicles. It doesn't try and find the funding for them or the reason or why for them. Normally, I believe a department or an office would come to the committee that it talks to and present the problem and hopefully present a solution. With a multi-million-dollar budget, we might have hoped that there would be, we can't afford to buy a whole $30,000 vehicle, but we can make a contribution towards it. The committee might have said, it's early in the year, could you maybe work your way through your budget and come back to us towards the end of the year and ask for a budget adjustment if you haven't been able to absorb the expense. But then the recommendation from the committee would come to administration, and it would say we need to replace this vehicle for unsafe reasons, and there was a write-up from KDOT saying if a vehicle has a certain amount of mileage or a certain amount of repairs or whatever, it falls into the category of needing to be replaced. Obviously, this one does. And with that information, the admin committee stamps its approval and it moves through the process, including next to finance to make sure the money is in place and then to accept and then take care of it. So this is short-circuited, as I understand it, because of the need for the vehicle and the fact that it's in bad shape. And as we get better at working through our procedures, then maybe there won't be any stops and starts from March to May. Mr. McMahon, may I ask how large your fleet is, and is this the only vehicle that's going to come up, or are we going to see them in a row?
So no other vehicles have been deemed unsafe by the Transportation Department. I suppose if that happens between now and the end of the fiscal year, we'll be in the situation again. We have vehicles, some that are paid through grant dollars, some that are paid through directly out of my budget, where we're able to use equitable sharing funds and drug asset forfeiture funds. This is not one of those vehicles. This is one of the vehicles that has been funded by the county. As you know, there is no money in my capital budget to replace vehicles during the year. And so that's why we're at.
And how many vehicles are in the fleet?
I don't know the exact number on hand.
Okay, but this is the one that we speed up with now. So,
all the vehicles are used on a daily basis. Some to move files, documents, whatever office supplies. One of the various locations, as you know, we have offices in Aurora, Elgin, Kane, St. Charles, kind of spread across the county. The majority of the vehicles are used by either an assistant state's attorney or an investigator who is going out to conduct interviews of witnesses, process, transport evidence, maybe do a crime lab, things of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea.
Mr. Chairman, I move we call the question.
The clerk call the roll.
Ellen? Aye. Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Yes. Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Rico?
Yes.
Mannion?
Yes.
Dice?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Pepperell?
Yes.
Solo? Yes. Sarah? Yes. Burgess?
Yes.
Thomas? Yes. Boydman? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Moretti? Yes.
Motion passes. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second on number 19-174, Executive Director of Finance, Joe Onsick, nomination for Chicago CFO of the Year 2019. Mr. O'Shea moves, that gets all seconds. Any discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Ellen? Aye. Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Rico? Mannion?
Yes.
Dice?
Yes.
Kobe? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina? Yes. Sanchez?
Yes.
Pepperell?
Yes.
Solo? Yes. Sarah? Yes. Burgess? Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Boydman? Yes. Moretti? Yes.
The motion passes. I would also ask our administrative staff from the County Board Office to forward a copy of this resolution to the nominating committee for consideration. Okay, may I have a motion and a second for number 19-175, appointments in Pingree Grove? So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Kobe. Any thoughts or comments? If not, clerk call the roll.
Ellen? Guerrero? Yes. Davis?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Rico?
Yes.
Mannion?
Yes.
Dice?
Yes.
Kobe? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
started crossing the river with the actual construction of the long-awaited bridge. As part of that process, the KDOT staff, using our award-winning QBS, or quality-based selection process, requested a consulting agreement with Stantec Consulting Services out of Chicago, Illinois. This is for toll bridge operations support services. Essentially, as we begin working with the Tollway Authority, this is a very unique situation. They'll handle the IPAS tolling, and this is only the second time they've ever done it. And of course, Kane County has no experience with tolling. So the Tollway Authority has actually suggested that we bring a consultant on board, and KDOT agrees that we can use some advice and so forth through this entire process. So there was a concern, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Iqbal, he'll speak for himself, but I think there was a concern that since we went to the Capitol Bill hearing meetings up in Elgin about 2 weeks ago, that maybe we'll get some additional funding that will negate the need for tolling. And that is a possibility. It's kind of a long shot, but we're hoping for it. But in the meantime, we do need to get this process moving, and we really do need to have this toll consultant on board. If we do not make the deadline when the bridge opens, the county will be on the hook for about $250,000 a month in expenses that would normally be covered by the tolling. So that's what it is. That's why we're asking for it. We desperately would like to move it forward.
Any other comments? Dr. Iqbal.
I move to amend this motion. I agree with the statement made by Mr. Frost. I support the tolling program, but we need to add one more caveat into it. We are developing a new toll collection system, and I want to add one thing that will allow the future board to reduce toll tax on the residents if so desire. There will be several categories of toll, small R, large R, and there should be another category of resident versus non-resident. And it can be developed into it, at least KDOT should evaluate it.
Okay, so the nature of the amendment would be to instruct the consulting firm to consider a procedure that would allow future boards to reduce or increase tolls, but to reduce, all of ours is to reduce the tolls at a later date if the situation merits. Is that correct?
That's one part, but we should differentiate between residents and non-residents.
Okay, and to study resident, I'm sorry, I missed the first. Okay. So it's a differentiation between residents and non-residents?
Correct.
And is that Kane County?
Kane County resident versus non-Kane County resident.
Okay. And for future, and this is within the study itself, so I would say that any action to give authority to me would not seem to belong in this. However, the need to study, as Dr. Iqbal says, I can see the need for both of these if it's the will of the board. So you're making that amendment. We need a second. Second by Mr. Fraz. And then any comments or questions on the amendment first? Comments on the amendment, Mr. Fraz?
Yeah, we would have no problem agreeing to that. The toll has yet to be determined and the parameters of it, and this organization will help us do that. One thing I did neglect to mention that's very important, this is a 3-year contract, and it is an on-call basis, so we can end it at any time, and at such time we only pay for services used up to that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Burrow?
I agree with what you just said, but I disagree with what Commissioner Ball said. We should not penalize people for coming back and forth into Kane County, perhaps to work. So if they had to use the bridge and they had to pay a toll to come to work, we do not want them to have an excess toll just because they are a resident of Kane County.
clarification, do you object to, I understand that you object to the concept of a differentiation between residents and non-residents. However, the amendment addresses, are we going to study the potential? Do you object to the study also of the concept?
To the study, I object to the portion that says resident and non-resident.
Just so that I can clarify for your consideration, what his amendment is just a study. Okay. All right. Other comments, questions? Ms. Winicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you could just clarify exactly what the resolution will say before we vote on it.
Well, this is the amendment that we're discussing to the resolution, is that we'll give instructions to the Department of Transportation to put into this contract with this group that they will include in their study resident, non-resident at some point, that concept, and then also within the study, potential lowering of tolls if future boards consider that necessary. Ms. Moline?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if I need that microphone.
Sure, we need a microphone for the recording.
Thank you. So I guess my question would be to Carl, because this was already put into an agreement with the consulting services. We're asking for 2 more services added on to this. Is there an added cost? Were these requests discussed with the consultants? And do they have the ability to provide the support with Dr. Iqbal's requests? Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I think I would answer that question this way. I'll read you one of the bullet points out of the scope of services. So one of the bullet points says on-call support services, parentheses, e.g. toll rate analysis, net toll revenue analysis, financial risk analysis, local use transponder analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So we put together a laundry list of everything that we thought we might need help with. And so this task is actually something that we anticipated might happen. And we understand that the board has some interest in doing that. And so at some point in the future, we can give direction to the consultant within the scope, within the cost parameters that you already have, without raising the total contract amount.
Ms. Maria?
No, thank you. Thank you, Carl.
I believe Ms. Thomas, did you have a question? Okay. Any further questions, comments? Mr. Kites.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to speak on behalf of my constituents who, once again, want to mention that this toll is an unfair burden on the tolling part District 23 as we drive across our town, and that this amendment does at least alleviate some of that concern that for us to drive across the river to go to Home Depot and come back would be the cost of an extra $2 approximately. I believe that's it on that.
Thank you, Mr. Kites. Okay, we have an amendment, a motion to pass the amendment and a second. Let's see, we have the motion already. We'll go ahead and ask the clerk to call the roll on the amendment.
Ellen?
Aye.
Guerrero? Yes. Nevis?
No.
Raz?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Moshe?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Dias?
Yes.
Opie? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Peplo?
No.
Silva? Yes. Sterrett?
Yes.
Burgess?
No.
Thomas? No. Weber?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. And Winicky? Yes. Passes.
The amendment passes. Now we have, let's see, the people who made the motion, I believe that it was Mr. Frost. I'm going to ask you if you, well, the amendment applies, and so we'd be moving, who is the second on Ms. Allen? So now it's a motion to approve the resolution as amended. Is there any discussion on the resolution as amended.
Can somebody read us a version, this amended version, so I know what it actually says?
It's what the motion is, plus a clarification that we also asked them to look at the concept of the resident, non-resident, and the potential reduction of tolls if a future board decides. No further discussion. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Ellen?
Aye.
Guerrero? Yes. Evers?
No.
Glass?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
O'Shea?
Yes.
Iqbal?
Yes.
Mangan?
Yes.
Tice?
No.
Colby? Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Martin?
Yes.
Molina?
Yes.
Sanchez?
No.
Cheflo?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Burgess?
No.
Thomas? Yes. Weber?
Yes.
Wegman? No. Mickey?
The motion as amended passes. May I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss settlement of claims and pending litigation. So, who would like to move that? Mr. Shufflo, second by Ms. Wernicke. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. I said that.